Hey friends of Keycloak, nice to see you again. I am Niko and I'm talking about Keycloak. Today in this video I want to tell you about the new declarative user profile which was introduced some versions ago. I will show you everything you need to know, how to configure, how it works and so on. So grab a coffee, make yourself comfortable and subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so, and then let's start. The declarative user profile has become default and supported with Keycloak 24. It was available, I think, around Keycloak 12 or 14, and yes, I don't know exactly, as a preview feature, and it was poorly implemented since then, and took some while until it has become supported and fully functionable. So I've already prepared my environment and created a user, a default user. I defined nothing like the defaults already there. And the regular user is just a user with the ID and the typical 4 attributes: the username, the email address, the first name, and the last name. In former versions, before the declarative user profile became default, there was an attribute tab in here in the top. We can still get this attribute tab back. I will show you this later on. But before, I want to focus on the user profile definition. So in this default setting, there's no possibility to add some other attributes to this user because only these 4 are predefined by default. We can now define our own user properties, user attributes in the realm settings. And the realm settings, there's a tab, the user profile. And under user profile, you can define your custom attributes. And you can already see there are the 4 default attributes: the username, the email address, first name, and last name. We can now create a custom attribute. So perhaps let's use the phone number. That's the attribute name, like it is saved in the database. And then we can set a display name, how the label is being displayed at the field, whether if it's a multi-valued field or not, an attribute group. I'll show you the groups also later on. And then we have some further settings, like when is it enabled? Is it always enabled? Do I see always the field, or do I only see the field if it's requested for some scopes? Let's stick this to always for now, and we'll change this later on. The same I can set with the required field settings. By default, it's off, it's not required, and I can set it to required. I can set it to required for both the admins and the user, only for the user, or only for the administrators. And I can also set the requirement as always, or the requirement is only when a certain scope is requested. So let's first skip this requirement, and we add this also later, step by step. And then we have the permission, who can edit and who can view the field. By default, only an administrator can edit a field, and if someone is able to edit the attribute, of course, the administrator is also able to view the attribute. So it doesn't make a difference if you have the view field enabled, if you have the edit field enabled or not. Full scope, nothing can go wrong. Okay. Validations. You can add validators to the field so that the input is validated before saving. And then you have a variety of validators. Of course, this is also SPI based, and you can add your own custom validators to this. And depending on your attribute, you have a choice of checking if it's double format, email format, integer, if it's a date, the length validator, it's a local date, if it's multi-valued options, whatever. Do we have some phone number related validations? No, we don't. So we just say we have a length validator, for example, and we want to have a phone number with a minimum length of 3 digits and a maximum length of 8 digits. I know this doesn't make sense, but for sake of demonstration, we can set these values, a minimum length and a maximum length. And then we also have some annotations. And the annotations let us influence the style, how the attribute field is being rendered in the UI. So the most used annotation is probably the input type. We have also some helper text and placeholder size, columns, rows for text fields, and so on. Let's focus on the input type, and for the input type, we can now set it to text, text area select, so the regular HTML5 input types. And there's also an HTML type, a telephone number type, phone number type, so that the browser knows how to display perhaps some controls. If you're showing this field on a mobile phone, and then no complete alphanumeric keys will be displayed, but only the numeric telephone number displays. So let's use the telephone number and then create our attribute, the phone number. And if we go now to our user back, we can see we have an additional field, the phone number, and we can now enter some phone number. And if we don't add a phone number with a minimum length of 3 digits, we get an error message. The user has not been saved. Okay, the error message actually is missing. Why ever? But we have it here. Must have a length between 3 and 8. That's what we defined. Okay, we can leave it out. No entry is valid because it's no value. And only if you enter a value, you have to provide the length. And as it is not a required field, we don't have to enter any value. So let's go back to the settings. We want to define it a little bit further. We now saw it was put to the regular list of attributes, but we want to put it to an extra group. So create the attributes group. There's a predefined group, the user metadata, that's used by Keycloak internally for some metadata. For example, if the user comes from an LDAP, we create our own group. We have let's call it personal data, and the display name, and also a display description. We can add here. And then we have the group, and now we can add this group to our attribute, or vice versa, add the attribute to the group. In the attribute group field, we can now select our personal group, and then it will be displayed at the personal groups. Let's also do this field as a required field, and only for the users. So administrators don't need to enter a phone number, but the user has to enter a phone number, and it's still always required. Not scope dependent, it's always required. Save. Go back to our user in the admin UI still, and we see we have the group personal data with a description, and the phone number field is now located in the personal data group. It does not have an asterisk like the username because it's not a required field for the administrator. But if we now log in as the user, we will see we will be prompted to enter a phone number because it is required. Okay, so let's use the admin, the account console, like I always do. And I have my custom login. Now I can authenticate with my user, and as the phone number is now a required field for the user, I will be presented with the required action to update my profile, to verify the profile. There's also the group, personal data with the description, and I have the phone number field marked with an asterisk. It's a required field. Please specify this field, default message. Then I can enter my phone number, and if it's not valid, I get also an error message. Length must be between 3 and 8. And if we have a quick look about to the rendering of this field, we can see it's type telephone. Make this bigger. You can see here ID phone number, type tel. That's the HTML5 input type of telephone number. Okay. So if we enter a valid phone number, more or less valid, then we can submit our data. And also the account console was updated to reflect the new attributes. And you can see the phone number has an input field. It's required. And if we now enter some more values, it's longer than 8. I get also an error message, and I can just update the phone number. And even if I delete it, I want to save, I get a message to enter the phone number. Okay, great, works fine. Back to the UI, the admin UI, and we can add some more fields. For example, let's create the department. So the user can select a department. Department, attribute groups, also personal data, add it to our custom group. It's always enabled. It's for now it's not required. And the user can edit, the administrator can edit. And now we want to have a select box where the user can select its department. So we have not a length or so, we have an options validator, and now we can add some options. So for example, we have the sales department, we have marketing, and we have accounting, and of course we have HR, and we have the obvious management. Now we have the options to select from, and if we use the options validator, the input type select is automatically set. We could also use some select radio buttons or a multi-select if you want to allow to have a multi-selection. And we use the regular select for now. And yeah, closing and just creating our field. And now if we update our UI in the account console, we see the department field, select an option, and we can now select some department. We can select, for example, the sales department, save it, and then the user will be associated to the sales department. And also this is reflected, of course, in the admin UI for the user. We can see the department, the sales. It's also a select box where we can change the value. So let's add one more attribute in the realm settings, the user profile, create an attribute. And let's say we want to know if the user is a vegan. A user, are you a vegan? And also in our personal data, always enabled. It's a required field. No, it's not required. The user can decide if he specifies this. And we can have also an options field, and we have the yes and the no. And now we don't have the select, but we want to have the radio buttons. Create. vegan, are you vegan? Okay. And then back to our account UI. We have the question, are you vegan? Yes or no. Can select. We are not a vegan person. We want to eat meat and fish, perhaps. And yeah, so you see the different types of input types. So let's see how we can more fine-grained control, get a more fine-grained control over these fields. Let's use the phone number. This is still always enabled, and it's still required. It's still required only for the user, but it's not always required. Now it's scope dependent required, and it will always be asked the user when a certain scope is requested. So let's bind the phone number attribute to the obvious phone scope. And now the user is only forced to enter the phone number when the scope phone is requested. And this way you can control which data will be enforced from the user or not. And you can be a little bit more precise when requesting data from the user and not generally requesting all global data for the user, no matter if you need it or if you don't need it. And let's save it. And also we add the department or change the department for not enabled always, but always only enable the field department also to scope. And for the sake of easiness, let's also use the phone number scope and just hit save. And now we can go to the user, and as an administrator, we don't have to specify the phone number, so we can delete it here. And so the user is forced to request to enter the phone number, but only if the phone number scope is requested. So go back to our account console, do a reload, and we don't have a phone number, the sales. Why do we see the department? Just log in again. User. Seems that the account console is not scope dependent. Might be at the registration level. I didn't test this extensively, so don't know exactly. But the phone number is now no required field. There's no asterisk, and we can just save it. And let's log out. Let's see if we register. If we register, we have, in the register field, there's no department field because we didn't request it for the scope phone number, and we don't have the field department for now. Okay, so now let's use the scope phone. And as I can't change the account console from the code, I will just add the phone scope as a default scope. It's an optional scope. Let's add it as a default scope. So now the account console runs under the phone scope, and it's the same like this phone scope is requested explicitly by the client. If we now want to register, we have the phone number with an asterisk. It's now required, and we have the department, and the department is in the select box, where we can choose the department, and we now see the department field. And if we now sign in as our user without a phone number. We're getting now asked to enter the phone number in the update profile section before finally being authenticated. And we also see the department and the vegan field. Can enter it. Yeah. And as you can see, the phone number here is not a required field because I think the account console doesn't require the scopes currently. So the user profile is just about how to display the data and how to communicate the data across the API. It's not about the internal handling. Internally in Keycloak, the attributes are still there. You can add a various bunch of attributes to the user. Every attribute you like before. This hasn't changed. So the internal handling is still the same. It's just about the external handling, how to communicate these data over the API, the admin API and the account API, and how to display the data. So let's take a look into the API communication. If we do a reload of our user data, we can see we get the request from the account API on the user's profile, and we get a response from the username, first name, last name, the default properties, default attributes, and then we have the attributes object. In the attributes object, we have the phone number, vegan, and department attributes like we defined, and we have also some additional user profile metadata. It's the groups and the attributes. And you can see in the groups, we have the personal group in the last line. And we have the attributes with the username, email, first name, last name, the phone number, department, and vegan. And for example, in the department, we can see we have the annotations, it's a select type. And in the validators, we have the options of sales, marketing, accounting, HR, and management. And yeah, that's basically how this data is being propagated through the API. And the phone number, we have the validators of the length validator, the association to the personal group, and so on. And this is the same when we now switch to the admin API. If I open the network tab here and just go into my user, I get some metadata about the profile itself, attributes and groups, like we had in the account API. And then we have some requests for the users, or for the user. And the user itself also has the attributes, phone number, vegan, department, and some metadata about the attributes. So this is all here. And if we do now some change at the user profile, for example, we delete the vegan attribute. So vegan is gone, no more vegan users. What about the attribute? Well, we don't see the attribute anymore because we deleted it. And also on the network, we can see on the user, the wrong request, that's the proper request. On the response, through the API, we only get the phone number and department because only these two attributes we defined in the user profile. And also, if we now switch to the account, in the account again, also we have only the phone number and department, no more vegan. And we don't see the vegan field anymore. But internally, the vegan field is still there. And now I show you how you can get back the unmanaged attributes, so the attributes tab which was available before. Or if you migrate from a realm pre-24 to 24 and up, you will get this attributes tabs and the so-called unmanaged attributes by default. So that you don't experience any difference. In the realm settings, at the bottom, you have the switch Unmanaged Attributes. This is disabled by default for new realms starting with Keycloak 24. As mentioned, if you migrate an older Keycloak realm to 24 and up, this will be enabled by default. If you create a new realm, it's disabled. You can enable it at any time. If you enable it and save it and go to your user, you can see the Attributes tab is again here. And hey, the region attribute is still there, because now all unmanaged attributes are communicated through the attributes. And we can again see it in all the internal attributes. So if you have an SPI, for example, managing different attributes, you can still see them here. And if we take a look at the API, the response, you can now see the attributes object is complete again with the phone number, the region, and the department. But of course, in the user profile metadata, there is no region because we haven't defined it. And for the sake of completeness, we go to the account console and I have to open up the network tab, do a reload. And then we have the account API doing the response attributes. We have also the vegan attribute, because it's an unmanaged attribute. We have enabled the unmanaged attributes. It will be communicated over the API, but we don't see it in the UI because the UI only displays defined attributes, declared attributes, and no unmanaged attributes. If you want to show unmanaged attributes, you would have to extend it by yourself or implement your custom account console. So this was a short wrap-up of the new declarative user profile, which is here in Keycloak since 24. Having the possibility to have managed attributes with the declaration of validators, requirements, editing, whatever, and having still unmanaged attributes if you like them. Go ahead, play around with it, make your own experience, and I hope you find it useful. And I also hope this video is useful and you like this video. If yes, give me some thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my future videos. So long, stay healthy, stay safe, and bye bye.